What are your thoughts on the default, this deal that's been out there and that's been offered, and whether we should even be messing around this close to the deadline of October 18th?
Well, we have never defaulted, and we shouldn't default, and we won't default. The question is, how do you do it? And the extension of the debt limit has always been an opportunity to talk about the underlying problem, which is that we're spending too much, a lot more than we're taking in. And it's resulted in, frankly, some reforms. Remember, sequester, even before that, Graham-Rudman, more recently, the caps that were put in place on spending. So it's designed to be an opportunity to look at the underlying problem. What Republicans are saying is very simple. Of course, we're going to extend the debt limit, but we got to be sure that we know, how this happened. And it happened almost entirely, the increase in the debt limit that needs to be made, other than what would normally, have to be done, for two reasons. One is the roughly $2 trillion reconciliation bill, meaning totally partisan, no Republican support, big spending bill that happened in March of this year. And then second is, the anticipation the Democrats have that they want to do it again. And this time, something between $3.5 and probably $6 trillion, if you look at the real numbers as to what its impact is going to be on the debt. So Republicans have said very simply over the last 24 hours, we're not going to get in your way, but you've got to extend your debt limit, because the increase in that debt limit is being caused by these, again, partisan reconciliation packages. Republicans, don't want to increase the spending in these areas. So I think it is an appropriate debate to have.
Here's the question. Look, you could say you're not going to get in the way, but by filibustering when they bring it to the floor, that would be getting in the way. But I think what's really happening here is, you're right, this was always there, and it's existed through history as a time to talk about and have both sides come together. It doesn't seem to me that there is much conversation taking place between the two sides, or any chance of that happening. Bernie Sanders wants to just get rid of the filibuster and say, if you guys are going to take the nuclear step of allowing us to potentially go into a debt default, we'll take the even bigger nuclear step of saying, forget it, let's get rid of the filibuster and change the entire structure of the Senate. I mean, this is a byproduct of there being no conversations between the two sides and no real room for any sort of compromise.
Well, you're right. You're absolutely right. Yesterday there was a threat, and I think it was real, that Democrats were going to, in effect, blow up the filibuster and therefore, again, have, as you say, really no debt limit, because they don't want to have the conversation. And you're right, we don't communicate as much between the parties as we should, but I don't think that's the fundamental problem. And the fundamental problem is just a difference in philosophy as to how much we should be spending as a nation. We're now approaching $30 trillion in our debt. Again, if you look at this most recent reconciliation package the Democrats are talking about pushing, it not only increases spending a lot, but it also increases taxes to the point that it really would hurt our economy at a time when we're trying to, sort of get out of this pandemic and get back on track. So that's the difference. It's a philosophical difference as to taxes and spending.
At this point, it's still a problem for the Democrats, because they can't get their entire party to sign off. You've got two senators who are holding out from the Democratic side. I think that was part of the problem, too. I think Joe Manchin looked at this and said, OK, if we're talking about a debt default, then that would be the thing that would push him to say, end the filibuster. Where does this come back down? Is this really about two people kind of deciding between the two parties, or between that party and deciding what's going to happen?
Well, I think the answer to this is pretty clear, that Democrats have the ability to provide the votes to be able to get this done. They have a mechanism to do it. In effect, Becky, if you think about it, there already is a carve-out for the filibuster for debt limit. It's called reconciliation. You can do it under reconciliation, because reconciliation deals with a budget, either taxes or spending. So the debt limit can be done under reconciliation. Republicans have basically said, we're not going to get in the way. We're going to waive a lot of our rights to, the times that we would normally have to debate issues or notices to take it to the budget committee. So go ahead and do it. We're giving you the ability to be able to do it. You can do it with 50 votes. You can do it under reconciliation. It's an existing carve-out, in effect, not just for the debt limit, but also for other economic issues. And the question I have is, why don't they just do it?